Colonel Kemp, one more question.
Yeah.
One more question, one last one, and then I have to give it over to another general, but a friend of yours as well.
I'm not a general. I was a colonel.
A colonel, yeah, okay. Another military man. Just last question: have you seen this American right wing messaging now? The ultra right wing in America that says that Churchill was the bad guy and that Hitler was an kind of unwitting guy, and they're turning these are people that Tucker Carlson interviewed, and it's, they want to turn these attitudes mainstream, that the good guys are bad guys and the bad guys are good guys. They want to turn the world topsy-turvy. Have you seen this stuff?
I have, and I'm fairly active on social media, particularly on X and Instagram, and there are two things on X, not so much Instagram, but on X, I can message about two things. One is Israel. If I say anything that's not bad about Israel, I get massive abuse on X, which I'm more than happy with. They can bring as much abuse as they wish. I know I'm annoying the right people. And the second thing that you can message about, which brings massive abuse, is anything good about Winston Churchill. And he's worse than Hitler. He's a racist. He's a imperialist. He's a fascist. He's the worst. And that is the narrative among so many people on social media anyway, even if not everywhere else. And there is a, I mean, more concerning to me, I have to say, than the intersection between the right wing and these pro-terrorist groups is the intersection between the left and the pro-terrorist people on social media and elsewhere in the universities, on the streets. We saw massive demonstrations just yesterday in London, including people who were basically calling for the genocide of the Jews. And this is a very troubling phenomenon. But one thing I would say, I think, your viewers need to be aware of this, and that what they hear all the time is from the US, to a large extent, from European countries, including the UK. They hear the outrage against Israel, the condemnation of Israel for war crimes. They see the disgusting cases in the International Criminal Court, the obscenities in the International Court of Justice. They see all this stuff. What they don't necessarily realize is, in my opinion, and I don't have scientific evidence for this apart from some polling, but in my opinion, the vast majority of people in the United States and in the United Kingdom are right behind Israel. It's the noisy minority we hear a lot about, but the ordinary decent people in the streets, those people who've ever heard of Israel, and I wouldn't say it's number one on the list of preoccupations, but the ordinary decent people are right with Israel, and they're very much against this anti-Israel clamor, which pollutes so much of our media. And while I'm talking about the media, is the final word for the BBC. I think there are plenty of anti-Israel media out there. I think the BBC is the worst because it's one of the most powerful media organizations in the world, and
it's seemingly legitimate.
People think it's legitimate, but it isn't. It's paid for by me and my fellow UK taxpayers, but it's so distorted. And you may remember a few years ago the Simon Wiesenthal Center in the United States. They did a list of the most anti-Semitic entities in the world. Number one was Iran. Number two was the BBC, which is shocking and horrific. And there's been a report recently about the BBC, which has called out the immense distortions over their reporting of Israel. But the point I'm trying to make is this is the media elites. It's the organizations like the ICC, the ICJ, the UN. It's think tanks in some cases. It's people on university campuses, but not the ordinary decent people. And I think that the vast majority, certainly in the US, it's about 80% of ordinary people support Israel in its fight. And I know Israel's going to win this fight. There's no question about that. All it takes is political leadership and military force, and it will win. And most people are cheering for Israel.
And the help of Hashem, we need that also.
Of course you do.
That's right. Colonel Kemp, I want to thank you so much for being with us here, not only on the show, but in Israel for the last year. Let me remind you that I extend my house to you. If you need a place to relax, come for Shabbat and stuff like that. We'll have a great time. I promise you. And you won't be the first non-Jew at my house for Shabbat. Believe me, we'll have a great time. So please come and visit us. And thank you so much for being with us in this past year, in this fight. And thank you very much for helping Israel in a place where it's very weak, which is in the media war, in the narrative war. And thank you so much for helping us with that fight and with your experience. So God bless you. And may this war make us stronger. And as you always say, let's keep attacking.
Thank you. And I'd just like to remind you as well that you're the one that gave me my Hebrew name of Avner when I visited you a couple of years ago.
Avner is the name of a British general, of a Jewish general, the general of King